Hello everyone, welcome back to another installment of Life Stories. My name is Trent, your host, as per usual, and we are back with more stories from Reddit/entitledparents. So, let's get started. Our first story of the day is titled, EM in a Hurry. This story happened back in 1990 and still disturbs me to this day. It's long, so TLDR at the end. Our cast is EM, entitled Mother, EK, entitled Kid, me, and LB, my little brother. Setup. This takes place when I was 15 and my little brother was 13, so apologies if I have forgot some parts. Youth. It was a sunny summer day in June. The schools had freed all their prisoners from bondage just a week earlier. The sun was shining, it was warm outside, and all the horrors of school were a memory. I lived in a subdivision, rest in peace Neil Peart, that had hundreds of houses. Each one was a copy of the others, each subdivision connected to another. My particular neighborhood had 3-mile-long streets full of houses, with the middle street leading to the next subdivision where the houses got a little bigger and there was a hospital, a nursing home that my mom worked at, and 6 or 7 large apartment buildings, and the streets led to one of the main roads in our city, where a party store sat at. For those who don't know what a party store is, it's just a neighborhood store that sold pop, soda, coke, depending on your location in the US, snacks, beer, liquor, lottery, and a few miscellaneous goods. It was the place kids liked to frequent because it was close by, and it had a few actual arcade games, back when Nintendo had just come out. The subdivisions had a few parks scattered throughout, but most kids chose to hang out at the party store instead. Now, this particular party store was about 3 miles from my house, a nice bike ride distance. And so, the story. On this day, my little brother wanted to go to the party store because they had just got the Mortal Kombat arcade game. Party stores around our subdivision were owned by a large Chaldean family who would get arcade games and rotate them through their stores. My little brother was determined to beat Mortal Kombat, and would blow his entire allowance playing game after game trying to beat it. He eventually did, but he kept bugging my mom to give him a ride to the store and to be dropped off. My mom, busy finishing cooking dinner and getting ready for work, told him to ask me if I would go with him. I was just beginning to shut down my BBS for maintenance when he came and asked me. I agreed to ride bikes with him to the store and back so he could blow his money on Mortal Kombat. It was a nice day and I had nothing better to do. The bike ride there was pleasant as we weaved through the subdivision, stopping to talk to the occasional friend who was outside. We got to the party store, and my little brother instantly ran in after dropping his bike on the side of the door at the party store. I picked up my kickstand and walked in to see my brother already stacking his quarters on the game. About 30 minutes later, he was finished and still not closer to beating the game. He asked me to loan him money. I told him I couldn't because I was saving up for an SFD drive for my computer at the time. But I brought us both a bottle of pop. It was a consolation prize. We stood outside drinking them as we prepared for the ride home. After we finished, we jumped on our bikes and headed home. Now this was about 3:45 p.m., and my mom worked at a nursing home that was next to the hospital, so we would ride past on the way home. I say to my brother, "You could probably ask Mom for some money if we catch her before she has to work. Her shift started at 4 p.m. My little brother says, "Hurry up or we'll miss her!" My mom and her co-workers would sit outside the nursing home at a picnic table on nice days and gossip and smoke before their shift would start. My little brother knew this, so he was booking it, because he knew he couldn't bother her while she was working unless it was an emergency. I sped up as we got on the bike path that took us past the hospital and nursing home to catch up to my brother. Now, this bike path was clearly marked and followed the rest of the street, and as it passed the hospital and nursing home, there was an entrance/exit to parking lots for both that the bike path crossed. Both had a stop sign for the cars that were exiting the hospital and nursing home and entering the subdivision, where the speed limit was 15 by the hospital, but went to 25 in the subdivision. As we were crossing the hospital exit that led into the subdivision, a land yacht driven by guess who pulls out and smashes into my little brother, which hurled him off his bike and into the street, about 15 feet in front of the now stopping car. I was a few feet behind my brother and hit her fender, sending me over the hood onto the passenger side. Note, she only hit her brakes after she hit my brother. Dazed, I slowly got up to see EK yelling at EM. EK looked to be about 9 or 10, a few years younger than my little brother. "Hurry, we're going to be late!" EM, agitated. Hold on, dear." EM jumped out of her vehicle and quickly waddled to my brother, who's laying on his back in the road. I'm stumbling towards him with what I thought was sweat running down the back of my head. EM grabs LB by the hand and begins jerking him off the ground, which made him scream in pain and begin to ugly cry. I hobble to my brother and slide his arm over my shoulder as I try to hold him up. EK is still yelling at EM to hurry up from the front seat of the car. EM has hurriedly began yanking my brother's now mangled bike out from the front of her car's front bumper and drags it over and tossed it on top of my bike that was laying on the path next to her car. EK, still seated in the car and whining loudly, "We're going to miss it! Hurry up!" EM says, "We won't, dear." My brother has a set of lungs on him and is now screaming and crying as I'm trying to hold him up. Me to LB, "Are you okay?" He just continued to scream and cry. I knew it was bad if he couldn't answer. My ears are ringing and my head is throbbing at this point. We didn't notice that my mom and her co-workers heard my brother's screams. The picnic table was about 300 feet away behind the parked cars and trucks, and were running through the parking lot towards us, but couldn't see what happened or who was involved because of the cars in the parking lot. EK, again, whining, "Let's go already! We're gonna miss it!" EM, out of breath as she climbs in the car, "We're going! You won't miss it!" EM was already inside her car, which she never turned off, and swerved around me and my brother to speed away through the subdivision. Just then, I could see my mom and two of her co-workers emerge from behind a truck in the parking lot, running full sprint at us. My brother's cries maintained the same volume, enough that some people were coming out from their houses to see what was going on. My mom, with tears in her eyes, "What happened?" I said, "A car hit us, and she drove away." I could hear an ambulance siren as it came speeding through the hospital parking lot towards us. One of my mom's co-workers pointed out that I'm bleeding from my head as my mom is frantically checking me and LB over. The ambulance screeches to a stop as two EMTs rush a gurney to my brother to lay him down, which only makes him scream more. One of them points out that my brother has a fractured leg, and the other is walking me to the ambulance behind my brother, who's on the gurney. It felt like the whole accident and ambulance took only less than 5 minutes to happen. Me and my brother and mom were rushed to the hospital. Mom was furious and kept prodding me for details as they were stitching my head. As I described the car and the woman, one of the nurses said that it sounded just like Karen, a nurse who works there that just left to take her son to a birthday party. The police were there shortly after I got my stitches finished, asking me if she said anything. I told them, "Not to us. Not that I remember." She was talking to EK, who kept saying that they would be late. My head was aching something awful. My mom looked at me with a sense of relief and went to check on my brother as the police asked me more questions. She wasn't with my brother at the time because the doctors whisked him off to get an x-ray as soon as we were inside. So I ended up with 11 stitches in my head and spending the night in the hospital, while my brother got to go home with my mom and a new cast for his broken femur. One of the nurses who felt bad about the accident and knew Karen had given my mom Karen's number, who my mom called after she got home with my brother. Now, this conversation was told to me by my brothers and my dad and mom because I was still in the hospital. "Is this Karen?" Yes it is. Who is this?" Her tone was like she was talking to an old friend. My mom says, "This is the mother of the 2 kids you hit today." EM, calm and still friendly, "Hi, so how are they doing?" My mom says, "Why the heck would you hit them and leave?" EM, very matter-of-factly, "Ooh, I had to get EK to his cousin's birthday party at Robert Gorilla Pizza Place. He didn't want to be late." Now, from what I was told, it was at this point my mom unleashed a slew of bad words and several physical threats. Several neighbors could hear her. Then, EM just hung up on her, not wanting to be berated, and threatened on the phone. My dad calmed Mom down, and they contacted a lawyer the next morning. The fallout. The police did catch up with EM, who lived in a very rich island community. She was charged and found guilty with 2 counts of hit and run and did no jail time, but 1,000 community service hours. Her high-priced lawyer got her off the slew of other charges, but in the civil suit, she lost. Without revealing amounts, me and my little brother bought new cars when we turned 17. I wanted an '86 Buick Grand National, but my parents freaked out and said no way. We settled on a new Dodge Shadow, and my brother got a Chrysler Concorde, still has it, and had money for various other toys. He bought a Nintendo and a Sega Saturn later on with a ton of games. I upgraded to an HP 486 computer back in the day. EM never did apologize to me, my brother, or family. During and after the trial, she said nothing to my family. She only communicated through her lawyer to us, out of fear of the mama bear, who wanted nothing more than to destroy her. The state we lived in was still very crooked and protective of rich people. Man, you know what? I wasn't even born in 1990? Things sound crazy! Surely even in, today's society, in 2020, rich people wouldn't get away with stuff like that, right, guys? Right? And with that slightly lukewarm ending out of the way, we got another long one, guys, because that was all the time we have for today. As usual, thank you for tuning into Life Stories. My name is Trent. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Reddit content coming your way, and I hope to see you guys soon.